Good evening, everyone.
Kavod Raf, how are you?
Baruch Hashem, thank you. Okay.
Kavod Raf, we have to do the Shulchan Aruch and the Bet Yosef on this one, yeah? Yeah, that's what I have in my notes pending.
Okay.
On Bet, no?
Yeah, it looks like we're continuing the Bet Yosef here. Because we said, right, when it comes to musk, which is something which is not plant-based, it's not from ground. So there we say mineh v'samim. So regarding that, he says Bet Yosef, Sham Amar Rav Chazda. Says this Rabbi, Amar Rav, name of the Rab. Al kol mugmarot kulam mevarchin alein borei atzeh v'samim. So it says in general, right, all the incense we say atzeh v'samim, chutz min mushk, right, except musk. Shemin chayahu, why? Because it comes from an animal. Shevarchin alav borei mineh v'samim. So we do mineh v'samim. ולא היה צריך רבנו לכתוב כאן דברים הללו. So he says, really, he says the Torah didn't write this here. Why is that? Because it's already covered in a different place, right? In the laws of right, the blessings of smell. That's places over there. But he says he went after the Talmud here, the order of the Talmud, so he wrote them here, and then he again, right, reiterated them in the laws of fragrances over there in a different place, in the laws of blessings. Siman Reish Yud Vav, which is chapter 216. So I'll explain over there, right, the whole theory behind this whole thing. Okay, that's the end of the Bet Yosef. So now we're going to go to Shulchan Aruch and finish this chapter. Let's see. So it says, Yain poter kol minei mashkin, right? We already said that wine absolves all types of drinks from having to bless on them. Afilu mibracha rishona, right? Even from the first blessing, and that's that. And let's see if there's any more Shulchan Aruch here. Right. So then he says, "Im enlo ela kos echad." If he only has one cup of wine, right? Manicho ad shtechad mazon v'orech alav. So he's going to leave it until the end of the meal and bless on it after Birkat Hamazon, because that's the most important place there. So yeah, we covered that already in the Beit Yosef tour. And what else we got here? Right, so it keeps on going, but the question is, how does this work in the Beit Yosef? Because in Beit Yosef, oh, I see. Okay, yeah. So yeah, there is more. There is more Beit Yosef here also, because it's not in the right order. That's why I didn't see it. So let's go back there towards the beginning. That's where it starts. So okay, question is, did we do bet in Beit Yosef?
Kabbalah, I think what we did was just read the entire tour, and we were missing the bit Yosef.
Okay. I see. האם הביאו להן גם שם המשקיע? שם המשקיע, אחר הסעודה עם היין. What you're saying, we didn't do any Bet Yosef at all?
Which I think what we did, I think we were doing a little bit the tour and the bit Yosef, but then I think you decided to just read the tour, the entire tour.
Okay, so anyway, so we got to do Bet Yosef, yeah. So
Yes.
it says here, יין שבתוך הסעודה מברכים עליו בורא פרי הגפן, right? As we said, that we bless בורא פרי הגפן for the wine which comes in the סעודה, כלומר, ולא אמינן שפט פוטרתו, so we don't say that the bread absolves it, מבואר בפרק כיצד מברכים, where is this in מסכת ברכות? מ' א' עמוד ב', שאלו את בן זומא, right, they asked בן זומא, מפני מה אמרו דברים הבאים מחמת הסעודה, בתוך הסעודה אינם טעונים ברכה? Why they say, yeah, I'm sorry, 1 second. I should go in. Yeah, I think Aleph we did though. From my recollection, this looks familiar. Shani attempt to go in the whole small. Should go in the whole small. I know. Yeah, so Aleph we did, yeah. So let me just check that if we did that. Yeah, so bet we did, right? Yeah. So we just finished it now. So I guess that means we're going to Gimel in Bet Yosef. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we gotta go to Gimel. Just to make sure I'm checking again. Just to make sure. Yeah, we did that. Okay, so yeah, we're going to Gimel. So it says, "Mash katav Rabbeinu ve'im en lo ela kos echad." So he says, right, that which Rabbeinu said, that if he has only one cup, he should leave it for the last part, the last after the meal, right after Birkat Hamazon. So he says, where's the source for this? Mishnah besol perek elu dvarim. So Mishnah nun aleph amud bet. Ba lahem yain achar Hamazon. So it says, right, if the wine came after the meal, ve'en sham ela oto kos, and you have only one cup. Bet Shammai omrim. Bet Shammai says, mevorech al yain, right? You bless on the wine, ve'achar kach mevorech al Hamazon, and then on the Birkat Hamazon. Bet Hillel omrim, but Bet Hillel says, right, mevorech al Hamazon. First you do Birkat Hamazon, and then on the wine, right? Chacham mevorech al yain. V'kaim alam ki Bet Hillel. So we hold like Bet Hillel, right? So there you go, right? So the proper thing to do is, as we said, if you have only one cup, leave it for after Birkat Hamazon. Okay. So we'll see the Shulchan Aruch there and the Gimel, and then we'll go on to Daled. So it says here, אם אין לו אלא כוס אחד, only if he has only one cup, that we says, right? מניחו עד לחר המזון וברך עליו. As we said, you do after Birkat Hamazon, you bless over and then over there. So why is that? Again, right? Because this is the most important thing, from the wine. This is the most important element of drinking the wine, this mitzvah over here, which is after the Birkat Hamazon. So therefore, you leave it for there. Okay, so that's that. Now we'll go to Dalit. So it says over here, "Tzarich levarech Birkat Hamazon, shelo kavah shtot lifnei Hamazon." We gotta see this inside the tour. I'm not really sure what he's saying here. אין מילה שצריך לברך בתוך המזון שלא קבע לשתות לפני המזון. Okay, I get it. I'm sorry. I understand. So he's saying like this, right? The tour that which we said, that he would have to bless during the meal, right? That's only if he didn't do like cocktails before the meal, or kiddush. But if he did, as we said, right, yesterday, you don't need to bless again because you already did it before. So regarding that, says Bet Yosef, בפרק כיצד מברכים, in this parak over there in Brachot Mem Bet Amud Aleph, Tanan berech al hayayin shelifnei hamazon. So it says there, right, that if he, it says in the Mishnah, if he blessed on the wine before, before the meal, so he absolves also whatever comes after. Rashi says, "Noagim hayu leavi kodem achilat kos yain lishtot." So he says the custom was, they used to have like a little cocktail there before, the meal, 1 cup of wine. Tanya, the kaman, like we learned in the brights afterwards. בהם ג' עבודה, הוא מבין לפניהם פרפראות להמשיך האכילה כגון פרגיות ודגים, right? So what they would do is they would bring, some appetizer before the meal, and they would serve like a cup of wine with it. So he says, what did they bring? Things like fish, or right, or hens, whatever they call it. There's a name for it. The young hens, yeah, whatever. So young chickens. So things like this. There was like an appetizer. And then they would bring like the main table, the main course. And after they finished the meal, they would again, right, sit down and eat some dessert, whatever it was. So he says, for instance, they would bring like all kinds of, baked things, baked stuff, like bakery goods, baked goods, whatever. So anyway, they would bring that. It's good for the heart. So he says, right, that, and that's the wine which comes after the meal. It's like aperitif kind of thing. And they both come before Birkat Hamazon. That's it says the Gemara over there. Right? They asked Balahem Yain betoch Hamazon if they had wine before the meal. Does that also absolve, right, whatever comes after? Right, for the dessert, whatever. If you're gonna tell me that if he blessed before the meal on the wine, he also absolves afterwards, whatever comes after. Because they're both coming to drink. But he says here, right, one is really coming to dip and the other one is coming to drink. Lo, maybe not so. Oh, Dilma Loshana, or maybe there's no difference. Rav Amar Poter. So Rav says it does actually absolve it. But Rav Kana Amar Eno Poter. Rav Kana says no. Pasku Poskim Keman de Amar Eno Poter. So, right, the Poskim like the one who says it doesn't absolve. Upershua Tosfot says Tosfot regarding that, explains. Ve'arosh, also the Rosh. I'll have the opinion that which we said that Aval Hacha, the Zerishtot, this coming to soak and this coming to drink. Lo delishtot gara milishtot. Doesn't mean that dipping or the soaking is worse than drinking. And therefore, right, it doesn't absolve the inferior, or the importance element of it. כתב ראש נרד יין שלפני המזון פותר יין שבתוך המזון. So the Rosh says that the wine which comes before the meal does absolve the wine which is during the meal. דעד כאן לא קאה מבא אלא מזה שבא לשרות, because they're only really asking about when it comes to dip or whatever, soak, אם פותר יין שבא לשתות, if it absolves the wine what comes for drinking. אבל יין שלפני המזון שבא לשתות, but it says when you have wine which comes for drinking before, pshita shepoter yain shebetoch hamazon. Of course, it'll absolve, right, the wine which is during the meal. Mizat tam yain shel kiddush poter yain shebetoch hamazon. So he says, therefore, if you have wine for the kiddush, it'll definitely absolve also the wine that comes during the meal. Lo mibaya kiddush, den kiddush ela b'makom seuda. So he says, I don't need to tell you when it comes to kiddush. Why? Because the kiddush only comes in the place of the seuda. Ela afilu im hibdil ala yain. But he says not only that, but even if he made havdalah on wine, poter yain shebetoch hamazon, he does absolve the wine which is during the meal. Heavy, heavy, raya, he brought a source for that. Interesting. Okay. So then he says, "V'chein katvu sham Rabbeinu Yonah." That's what it says, Rabbeinu Yonah. V'Rashba, so the Rashba. V'chein katav Rosh, also the Rosh. V'gam perek arve Psachim, also there in Psachim. V'sham katav be'edia. He writes there explicitly, "Shafilu hibdil kodem shinatal yadav." Even if he made havdalah before he washed his hands, nami patar, he also absolves it there. V'chein katvu Tosfot. That's what's in Tosfot. B'perek kitzad mivrachin. In this perek. אלא שנראה מדבריהם the דהבדלה לא פטר, but it seems from them he says that wine which of הבדלה does not absolve, אלא it only absolves כשהבדיל אחר שנטל ידיו, if he made הבדלה after he washed his hands. שכתבו בזה לשנם, because they wrote נראה משם דאין לחלק בין הבדלה לקידוש. It seems from there that we shouldn't differentiate between הבדלה and קידוש. ולפוקה מהנה דחולקים, this comes to exclude from the ones that differentiate, dafka kiddush patar, and they say that only kiddush absolves. Mishum de'en kiddush elav memakom seuda, because kiddush only comes in the place of a meal. Aval yain shel abdalah, but when it comes to wine, which for havdalah lo patar, it doesn't absolve it. Afilu abdil leachar netilat, even if he did havdalah after the washing, dachi meire that the paskin and the yain, because it's referring to this, that which we paskin, that wine shelifnei mazon, and that wine that came before the meal, patar hayan shebetoch hamazon. It absolves wine which comes during the meal. The kvar natal yadav, because he already washed his hands. V'achi mashma b'samuch betoch habrayta. That's the way it's implied in the brayta. It says from the brayta, miu nireh kivan de natal yadav. But he says, however, it seems that since he washed his hands, and his intention is to eat there and drink there. He absolves even in Havdalah. But he says some are stringent to make a Havdalah before the washing. In order to prevent getting into in order to prevent getting into a dispute. Because then afterwards you would have to also bless the blessing, after blessing. Okay, which is the ala gefen, whatever. It doesn't absolve the wine which is in the meal. How can I show? That's the end of it. That's what it says also Mordechai. So he says, what's halacha regarding this? It seems like he says that if he's doing havdalah, right, until he washes his hands, it doesn't absolve the wine which comes during the meal. So one more time, he says the halacha is that if he makes havdalah before washing his hands, יכוון שלא להוציא יין שבתוך הסעודה. Right. So you should have in mind not to absolve the wine which is during the meal. דאפוקי נפשי מספק. Why? It removes himself from doubt. ובדיעבד שלא כיוון, כך פטר יין שבתוך הסעודה. So he says, בדיעבד, if he didn't have this intention, then he does absolve the wine which is during the meal. The safek brachot derabbanan le'akil, because it's a doubt, rabbinic doubt of the rabbis. Okay, so then he goes on to say, Rabbeinu, מה שכתב רבנו, יין שלפני המזון, פותר כל היין שלאחר המזון. Also write the wine which came before the meal, will absolve wine which came after the meal. He המשנה שהזכרתי בסמוך, that's the Mishnah we mentioned. So we already said, right, what does it mean after the meal? It means that it's before Birkat HaMazon. It's like dessert. Okay. Well, then he moves on. פירוש מי שרגיל לקבוע לשתות יין. Whoever is accustomed, right, to drink wine. כלומר, דאפוקי יין ששותה אחר ברכת המזון. That comes to exclude, says Bet Yosef, wine which he drinks after the ברכת המזון, שצריך לברך עליו, you do have to bless on there. ואינו נפטר בברכת היין שלפני, and you're not going to be absolved with the blessing of the wine you did before the meal. כמו שכתב רבנו בידיה, like it says the רבנו, the Tur, explicitly, to come on later on, בסמוך, שכתב רבנו יונה, וכתב רבנו יונה, says this rabbi, שזה היה בימיהם, this was in their times, he says, שהיו מסלקים השולחן, so what does that mean? They used to remove the table, קודם ברכת המזון, before ברכת המזון. So, what he means to say is that, we already mentioned this one time a while ago, in those days they had like small tables, individual tables for each person. And because of that, what they would do is once they were done with the meal, they would like remove the tables, from each person. So now he would just be sitting there without a table. But he says nowadays, it's not a custom like that. Even if he would drink after he finished eating, as long as he didn't do birkat hamazon, it's considered like he's still within the meal. That's what it says in Tosfot also, regarding this question, the yain shel achar hamazon lete bizman hazeh, that we don't really have wine which comes after the meal today, nowadays. So he says, why is that? Because we don't really, stop eating the bread throughout the whole meal, So it's considered to be like still a part of the meal. That's what it says in Mordechai. Also Tosfot בפרק ערי פסחים also over there. בסימן קע"ט התבהר, דאיכא דאמר, it's going to be explained there in this chapter, he says, which is 179, to be explained that Hecha de Amar Havlan B'Nivrich. If he said Havlan B'Nivrich, which means like, let's do Zimun, let's do Birkat Hamazon. Then even for us, he would have to come and return and bless again. Imrod said if he wants to drink now, right? Some more stuff. And then he moves on. So he says that which we said, that wine which comes before the meal, it absolves it. That's only when Shabbat and Yom Tov. That which said in Rabbi. That's the only place where wine is not frequently found. These rabbis also wrote this. That's what it seems, says also from Tosfot. ודווקא עניין ששותים קודם ברכת המזון. That's only wine which they drink before ברכת המזון. כן כתבו שם הריף והראש. That's what it says in the riff and the ראש. וכן יהיה מדברי רש"י, also from Rashi like that, על המשנה שכתבתי regarding the Mishnah that we wrote, בסמוך close by, וכן כתב הרמב"ם, also Rambam says this, פרק ד' מלכות ברכות, in the fourth parak of laws of blessings. Okay, we're almost done. Let's move on. So it says, כתוב באוהל מועד, right? It says in this book, אוהל מועד, יין שלפני המזון, wine that came before the meal, פוטר שלאחר המזון. It absolves that which comes after the meal. One is that said, בשבתות וימים טובים, only בשבת יום טוב, וכולי, right? אבל יין שבתוך המזון, but wine which came before, during the meal, אינו פוטר שלאחר המזון, doesn't absolve that which comes after the meal, שהוא לשתות שאין העיקר פוטר הטפל. That's coming to drink, and the main will not absolve the main part will not absolve the minor part, right? Whatever. וזה יין נקרא, and which wine is called שלאחר המזון, after the meal, כל שסח הרבה לאחר הסעודה. That's talking about if he spoke a lot after the סעודה, קודם ברכת המזון, ברכות ברכת המזון, ומרוב השיחה, and because he spoke so much, צמא לשתות, he's now thirsty, you know, all that talking made him thirsty. אבל אם צמא מחמת האכילה, but if he was thirsty because of the eating, אפילו לזמן מרובה, even for a long while, אחר שהפסיק אכילתו, after he stopped eating, אם לא ברך עדיין, he didn't bless yet, ברכת המזון. כל היין ששתה אותו יין. So he says all the wine that he drank, שישתה אותו יין שברך עליו, all the wine that he will drink, אותה יין, that wine that he blessed on it, בתוך המזון, during the meal, פתר אותו לשתות, it resolved it. לשתות מאכל, because it's coming to, right, just, right? So now I see, right, when it says לשתות, right, before I was translating it as soaking, right, or whatever, but it's not really that. What it means is that it's coming to like, right, to wash down your food, right, to wash it down. That's the end of it. So in other words, there's two types of drinking, right? There's drinking that comes, for the sake of drinking, and also, right, just to wash down the food. Why is that different? Because to wash down the food, it's basically like you're just using it as some kind of a, right, some kind of a physical aid. It's not really for the sake of drinking. You're doing it, for something, something else, some ulterior motive there. So it's not the same thing, really. Okay. That's the end of it, right? Akanashino. Now, who was this? This was the. Make sure we got this right here. Ohel Moed. Okay. It's a book called Ohel Moed. All right, that's good. So anyway, There's a little bit more here, I think. Medivra Rashba Shechtov. So he says in the words of Rashba that I'm going to write, the Samuch close by says Nireh Ken. Also seems like that. Okay. So that's the end of this whole piece here. And this was Dalid. Okay. So let's see Shulchan Aruch. So says Shulchan Aruch, in Kabbalah Lishtot Lifnei Mazon, right? If he had cocktails, before, right? Before the meal. They sat together, right, for cocktails, kind of like it was a group kind of setting. We're talking about something like that, right? So you do not have to again bless again during the meal, because it's like one after the other. So there's no gap in time there. That's the reason why you don't need to bless. So the yain לפני מזון פוטרו, וכן יין של קידוש פוטר יין בשביל מזון. Same thing with kiddush as we said, right? If you're making kiddush beforehand, so that will absolve the wine which comes during the meal. Don't need to bless again. וכן המבדיל על השולחן. Same thing he says also if you are making habdalah, right? פוטר היין שבתוך המזון. So you will absolve the wine which is coming during the meal. ויש אומרים שאין ברכת היין בהבדלה פוטר. And some say it does not work. אלא אם כן unless נטל ידיו קודם להבדלה. Unless he washed his hands before הבדלה. Okay? פוטר היין. Okay, and then he says, המבדיל קודם לנטילת יכוון שלא להוציא היין. So he says the proper thing to do in order to avoid this doubt, right? Getting into this doubt. He says when you are doing Havdalah, right? Have in mind not to fulfill your obligation for the wine during the meal, right? Which meal are we talking about? Melava Malka, right? Which comes after Shabbat, right? So if you're eating right after Havdalah, you should have this in mind, in order to avoid any doubts. But the truth is, I personally, don't have this problem. Why is that? Because when I make Havdalah, I don't eat Melava Malka right away. I wait, for a while. Hour or two, whatever, and then I eat afterwards. I'm not hungry, I have no appetite. So if that's the case, right, that you're going to do something else for a while, and then you're going to come back and eat later, for sure, right, that busing will not absolve what you're going to do afterwards, right, with another meal later on. So then it won't be a problem, So this is only an issue when you're eating right after the Havdalah, which most people don't do, by the way. Okay, that's that. So let's see what else we got here. So now we're going to Hey and Vav. So here the Tur said, "V'chol ma sheshoteh betoch haseuda," whatever he drinks during the meal, died lo b'birkat echad. Right? You need only one blessing, basically, right? You don't have to bless every time a new cup of wine comes, והנמילה בסתם, אבל אם כשבירך לא ידעתו לשתות, but he says that's only in a regular matter, in a regular setting. But if there was something unusual there, meaning that, right, when he blessed, he was only thinking to drink only one cup of wine. So then he would have to bless again, since his intention was to drink only one. So therefore, you shouldn't have this intention, to drink only one, because otherwise, you have to bless again. It's not really worth it. Okay. So I'm just going to take a quick look at the Shulchan Aruch, even though we didn't read the Bet Yosef yet, just to see like what the content is here. The Shulchan Aruch, כל ששותה יין, כל ששותה בתוך הסעודה, די לו ברכת ברכה אחת. If he drinks right during the meal, one blessing is enough, right, for the whole meal. אלא אם כן, unless he had in mind only to drink one, right? שברך לא היה דעתו לשתות אלא אותו כוס, נמלך לשתות אחר. Then he changed his mind to drink more. Then he would have to bless again. Okay, so I guess we'll stop here, because it's still a lot more to do here, and we'll pick it up next time. And we'll finish the Bet Yosef and Shulchan Aruch. It's going to take a little while to do this. So, Bet Hashem, thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. Laila Tov, Chazak Baruch, and Baruch Hashem, we have a lot of good news coming out. Good things for Am Yisrael, for good Jewish people. So we should be happy and thankful, Takadosh Baruch Hu, for giving us all these good things, all these good tidings. All right, so we'll see you tomorrow, Bezat Hashem. Chazak Baruch.
Thank you so much.
God bless.